Chapter 64 of Lorna Doone. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Michelle Harris. Lorna Doone by R.D. Blackmore. Chapter 64. Slaughter in the Marshes. We rattled away at a merry pace out of the town of Dulverton, my horse being gaily fed, and myself quite fit again for going. Of course I was puzzled about Cousin Ruth, for her behaviour was not at all such as I had expected, and indeed I had hoped for a far more loving and moving farewell than I got from her. But I said to myself, it is useless ever to count upon what a woman will do, and I think that I must have vexed her almost as much as she vexed me, and now to see what comes of it. So I put my horse across the moorland, and he threw his chest out bravely. Now if I tried to set down at length all the things that happened to me upon this adventure, every in and out and up and down and to and fro that occupied me, together with the things I saw and the things I heard of, however much the wiser people might applaud my narrative, it is likely enough that idle readers might exclaim, "What ails this man? Knows he not that men of parts and of real understanding have told us all we care to hear of that miserable business? Let him keep to his farm, and his bacon, and his wrestling, and constant feeding." Fearing to meet with such rebuffs, which after my death would vex me, I will try to set down only what is needful for my story, and the clearing of my character, and the good name of our parish. But the manner in which I was bandied about by false information from pillar to post, or at other times driven quite out of my way by the presence of the King's soldiers, may be known by the names of the following towns, to which I was sent in succession: Bath, Frome, Wells, Wincanton, Glastonbury, Shepton, Bradford, Axbridge, Somerton, and Bridgewater. This last place I reached on a Sunday night, the 4th or 5th of July, I think, or it might be the 6th for that matter, inasmuch as I had been too much worried to get the day of the month at church. Only I know that my horse and myself were glad to come to a decent place, where meat and corn could be had for money, and being quite weary of wandering about, we hoped to rest there a little. Of this, however, we found no chance, for the town was full of the good Duke's soldiers, if men may be called so, the half of whom had never been drilled nor had fired a gun; and it was rumoured among them that the Popish army, as they called it, was to be attacked that very night, and with God's assistance, beaten. However, by this time I had been taught to pay little attention to rumours, and having sought vainly for Tom Faggus among these poor rustic warriors, I took to my hostel, and went to bed, being as weary can be. Falling asleep immediately, I took heed of nothing, although the town was all alive, and lights had come glancing, as I lay down, and shouts making echo all round my room. But all I did was to bolt the door; not an inch would I budge, unless the house and even my bed were on fire. And so for several hours I lay, in the depth of the deepest slumber, without even a dream on its surface, until I was roused and awakened at last by a pushing and pulling and pinching and a plucking of hair out by the roots; and at length, being able to open mine eyes, I saw the old landlady, with a candle, heavily wondering at me. "Can't you let me alone?" I grumbled. "I have paid for my bed, mistress, and I won't get up for any one." "Would to God, young man," she answered, shaking me as hard as ever, "that the Popish soldiers may sleep this night only half as strong as thou dost. Fie on thee, fie on thee! Get up and go fight. We can hear the battle already, and a man of thy size mought stop a cannon." "I would rather stop a bed," said I. "What have I to do with fighting? I am for King James, if any." "Then thou mayest even stop a bed," the old woman muttered sulkily. "I would never have laboured half an hour to awake a Papisher. But hearken you one thing, young man. Zummerzet thou art by thy brogue, or at least by thy understanding of it. No Zummerzet maid will look at thee, in spite of thy size and stature, unless thou strike us a blow this night." "I lack no Zummerzet maid, mistress. I have a fairer than your brown things, and for her alone would I strike a blow." At this the old woman gave me up, as being beyond correction; and it vexed me a little that my great fame had not reached so far as Bridgewater, when I thought that it went to Bristow. But those people in East Somerset know nothing about wrestling. Devon is the headquarters of the art, and Devon is the county of my chief love. Howbeit my vanity was moved, by this slur upon it, for I had told her my name was John Ridd, when I had a gallon of ale with her ere ever I came upstairs, and she had nodded in such a manner that I thought she knew both name and fame. And here was I, not only shaken, pinched, and with many hairs pulled out, in the midst of my first good sleep for a week, but also abused and taken amiss, and (which vexed me most of all) unknown. Now there is nothing like vanity to keep a man awake at night, however he be weary; and most of all when he believes that he is doing something great, this time if never done before, yet other people will not see, except what they may laugh at, and so be far above him, and sleep themselves the happier. Therefore their sleep robs his own; for all things play so, in and out, with the godly and ungodly ever moving in a balance, as they have done in my time almost every year or two. All things have such nice reply of produce to the call for it, and such a spread across the world, giving here and taking there, yet on the whole pretty even, that haply sleep itself has but a certain stock, and keeps in hand, and sells to flattered, which can pay, that which flattened vanity cannot pay, and will not sue for. Be that as it may, I was by this time wide awake, though much aggrieved at feeling so, and through the open window heard the distant roll of musketry, and the beating of drums, with a quick rub-a-dub, and the come round the corner of the trumpet call. And perhaps Tom Faggus might be there, and shot at any moment, and my dear Annie left a poor widow, and my godson Jack an orphan, without a tooth to help him. Therefore I reviled myself for all my heavy laziness; and partly through good honest will, and partly through the stings of pride, and yet a little perhaps by virtue of a young man's love of riot, up I arose and dressed myself, and woke Kickums, who was snoring, and set out to see the worst of it. The sleepy hostler scratched his poll, and could not tell me which way to take. What odds to him who was king or pope, so long as he paid his way and got a bit of bacon on Sunday? And would I please to remember that I had roused him up at night, and the quality always made a point of paying 4 times over for a man's loss of his beauty sleep. I replied that his loss of beauty sleep was rather improving to a man of so high complexion, and that I, being none of the quality, must pay half quality prices; and so I gave him double fee, as became a good farmer, and he was glad to be quit of Kickums, as I saw by the turn of his eye while going out at the archway. All this was done by lanthorn light, although the moon was high and bold, and in the northern heaven flags and ribbons of a jostling pattern, such as we often have in autumn, but in July very rarely. Of these Master Dryden has spoken somewhere, in his courtly manner; but of him I think so little, because by fashion preferred to Shakespeare, that I cannot remember the passage, neither is it a credit to him. Therefore I was guided mainly by the sound of guns and trumpets, in riding out of the narrow ways and into the open marshes. And thus I might have found my road, in spite of all the spread of water and the glaze of moonshine, but that, as I followed sound, far from hedge or causeway, fog, like a chestnut tree in blossom touched with moonlight, met me. Now fog is a thing that I understand, and can do with well enough, where I know the country; but here I had never been before. It was nothing to our Exmoor fogs, not to be compared with them; and all the time one could see the moon, which we cannot do in our fogs, nor even the sun, for a week together. Yet the gleam of water always makes the fog more difficult, like a curtain on a mirror; none can tell the boundaries. And here we had broad water patches, in and out, inlaid on land, like mother of pearl in brown shittim wood;